Bienvenue, je suis Enes, and this is Disasterpieces, where I take a look at a film that is so terrible that it's actually brilliant. And this will also be the very first of this year's football season for the FIFA World Cup 2022 in Qatar. For every single day that a game is played, I'm going to try and cover a film from a country which is playing that day. All football related, which is obviously quite difficult to organise. So there will be some days I'm talking about a film which is not actually from the country that's playing that day, but I'm going to try my best. So anyone who's boycotting the World Cup, I've got you covered with all your footballing needs through cinema. And we're kicking off with the first day of the World Cup, where we have Qatar versus Ecuador. The opening ceremony has just started. And what better way to highlight just how much of a monumental cock-up this was by covering a film about FIFA 2014's United Passions. Oh, good lord, so much has gone wrong in the run-up to this World Cup. I mean, you got the bribes, which led to Qatar winning the bid when really it should have gone to the USA. The fact that this deifying film came out shortly before one of the biggest corruption scandals in recent memory. You can't make it up. There's a lot wrong with Qatar hosting the World Cup. The thousands of migrants who've died and who've been essentially forced into more or less slave labour, being paid next to nothing. You've got the other human rights abuses regarding women and the LGBT community, and the fact that it's enormously disrupted the footballing schedule, having a World Cup at the end of the year in November and December, which is resulting in a congested schedule and loads of injuries. So many players are not playing, including Mane and Benzema, the first and second place in the Ballon d'Or this year. Although this may lead to it being rather unpredictable. But even up until the last minute, it's been hugely controversial, with Qatar now backing out of their agreement that they were going to allow for alcohol to be sold in the stadiums and saying, oh no, actually we're not going to allow that. Oh, unless you pay 19 grand for a private executive box. Everyone's equal, but some are more equal than others. And then yesterday, the FIFA president Gianni Infantino launched into this huge tirade about the Western hypocrisy and how, they've committed atrocities in the past and, you should look past this. Well, you're allowed to criticise both. It's not an either-or situation. And then in one hugely out-of-touch statement, he essentially said, oh yeah, I'm gay, I'm a woman, I'm a migrant worker. I'm not gay, I'm not a woman, I'm not a migrant worker, but I know how it feels to be discriminated against because when I was a kid, I had red hair and freckles. When freckled gingerhead kids are being lashed, imprisoned, or put to death, let me know, Gianni. Let me know. I'm sure you can tell just how excited I am to crack this nut, given just how scathing the reviews were when this was made. And I'm curious just how much of the truth is bent here. So let's get to it. On y va. Well, this film chronicles the history of FIFA, the world governing body for football, or soccer, if you've been lobotomized. It's a joke. And we see it all from the genesis of FIFA with Robert Garant to Jules Rimet, João Havelange, and finally my boy Sepp, showing a rather sanitised view on the history of a controversial organisation, to say the least. Let's just get this out of the way. From my definition of a disaster piece being something which fails on every single fundamental level, this ticks all the boxes. However, I can't really say that it's a particularly rewarding viewing experience, given just how trite it is. This is one of the most sycophantic, self-congratulatory pieces of nonsense that I've ever seen. Yes, this was funded by FIFA themselves.
I'm gonna get killed for this, but who gives a shit, right? Oh, about time someone did a film about that corruption. And I read it, I was like, where is it? And I called up the director and he said, no, unfortunately we're financed by FIFA.
The deification of Blatter is quite frankly remarkable. If you went into this with no context whatsoever, you'd have thought he was the second coming of Jesus. Though, I will say this, Tim Roth as Sepp Blatter, say what you want about the film, but that casting is spot on. He is certainly the one cast member who appears to be trying at all. I mean, Gérard Depardieu as Jules Rimet, in comparison, is atrocious. It really is a true, how much? I'm not doing anything Wednesday, alright, sort of performance. Also, how they imagined how this could age well in any way is beyond me. They introduced Blatter with João Avalanche saying that he was good at finding money. No self-awareness at all. It's astounding.
A certain Blatter joining us. Where are you, Blatter? There's Blatter.
And speaking of, João Avalanche is played by Sam Neill, and the way they showcase him being seedy is just comedy gold. The way they show just how corrupt he is. They showcase him swimming in a pool in a lavish house while he answers the telephone, and also suggest that he'll take bribes from one of the African delegates. Not saying any of this stuff didn't happen, but it was really on the nose. His performance is just, he's on total autopilot, and his accent is not so much Brazilian, but as my friend Eamon puts it, a vaguely foreign James Bond villain accent. The thing about this film, though, is there's two very distinct parts. One before Blatter and the other after, as he's more or less introduced halfway through. The first half is really just laden with scenes about the preparation for the World Cup, which is more or less what you'd expect. You'd expect to see a bit more football, but you expect to see all that groundwork type of shit. But it's also peppered with a little bit of the good old British racism and misogyny, just for good measure. There's a scene where Jules Rimet is schmoozing with a load of football people, and his daughter is chatting to this guy who essentially is basically saying in no certain terms that black people are not capable of comprehending the subtleties of the sport of football.
Negroes playing football. Why not women while we're at it? Oh, that would be quite amusing, huh?
Think of that, imagine. And then Jules Rimet kind of comes in and apologises. The guy talking thinks that he's apologising for his daughter getting out of line. But no, Jules Rimet is calling out the racist Englishman. Just the way that the entire FIFA organisation is just angelic. There's not a single bad thing that you can say about them. That's how this comes across. Because I cannot fathom that there is no one in that organisation that's racist. No, I don't buy it. Although those British characters almost certainly said all of the things that are in the film. I'm not disputing that.
Those people will never understand the subtleties of football.
And along with all that, you've also got copious amounts of green screen that just does not work at all. There's an attempt in the direction to build tension for things as tedious as FIFA presidential elections and making it try to appear gripping, which it does not. Oh my god, I can't believe Sepp Blatter won another term. And then in the second half, which consists of scenes in boardrooms with executives and brand deals, who wants to see a sports film about this? I mean, sure, Moneyball did a reasonably good job of it, but it was about the fundamentals of the sport that they were discussing. The tactics, not the checks and balances and who they can get for a sponsorship. Virtually all the scenes are just simply expositional dumps that really offer nothing that you couldn't have already gathered reading a Wikipedia article. Everything has to be explained up to the most minute detail. And there's a scene where Blatter brings out some gold trophy thing and looks at it, and I had absolutely no idea what it was, as it was not explicitly stated. Turns out it was the new World Cup trophy. How was I to know? The way that characters were introduced, it's just people pointing in the distance and asking, who's that then? And a character who is of no real importance tells you their entire life story as if James Bond is being briefed. And then it has the gall to turn into a conspiracy thriller. What Why do we care? There are also random cutaways to kids playing football on a dusty pitch, which comes full circle at the end with a real girl power moment, which is wholly unearned, where this girl in goal puts the ball down and, in a Messi-esque attempt, dribbles past absolutely everyone, leaving all the kids in her wake, and she scores this absolute worldie, and then everyone lifts her up and celebrates. This film makes it appear as if FIFA ended apartheid, invented women's football, and ended world hunger. Why not throw in cured all cancer while we're at it? And the film ends with South Africa being awarded the World Cup, which I guess is supposed to bring it all together, because Sepp Blatter's dream was to have a World Cup in Africa, and obviously Pele's dream was for an African nation to win the World Cup, which still hasn't happened. Hopefully it does in my lifetime, I really hope so. But the ending is a clear moment of corruption, as the South African bid was won with bribes. It was supposed to go to Morocco. Whether that decision was good for the sport or not is really up for debate, but that was just too funny. United Passions made just $162,832 worldwide. That's not in France, that's not in the US, that's across the globe. From a budget of 32 million, that's a box office bomb if there ever was one. It also has the rare distinction, being one of 6 films, to have a 1 out of 100 aggregate score on Metacritic. Honestly, I can't decide what to give this in terms of a rating. It does have its moments of incredulous, laugh out loud absurdity, but it is also a huge snooze fest.
I'm gonna give this a 0 out of 10.
I wouldn't necessarily suggest subjecting yourself to this utter dross. I mean, it's not really worth the few moments of hilarity. Just watch the trailer. In defence of FIFA, I will say this. They do get a lot of bad press, but I do think that they are ultimately a force for good, and they have helped expand the game across the world and been on the right side of history regarding apartheid. You can tell Blatter genuinely does care about developing the sport in as many countries as possible, and I find that admirable, because that's what I want as well. I don't want every edition of the World Cup being held in South America or Western Europe. I would like to have some variety. He didn't even want Qatar to win, and told at least one delegate who was planning on voting for Qatar to vote for the USA. I mean, FIFA is so corrupt that even the corruption is corrupt. He has stated that the decision to award the World Cup to Qatar was a mistake, which is fair enough, but I don't really understand why within the intervening 12 years a decision was not made in lieu of the corruption scandal to hand the Qatar World Cup to a more suitable host, such as Australia. I mean, you could even get New Zealand to co-host like they have done with the Women's World Cup next year. I do hope, following the beer fiasco, that Qatar doesn't go back on their other promises, such as public displays of affection and LGBT visitors being welcome. We'll have to see. But in any case, I'm gonna try and enjoy it as much as I can, and hopefully it will be a good tournament with very few hitches, but let's hope a decision like this never happens again. And David Beckham, you should be ashamed. As Joe Lycett has said, why such a gay icon has chosen to endorse and take money from Qatar in this way is really... it's disappointing. Especially when, as he put it, he's married a Spice Girl and you cannot get gayer than that. Well, anyway, those are my thoughts on United Passions. Hopefully the other films that I cover within the next month or so are of a higher quality than this. I'm not going to watch this again, not even for a joke. But yeah, if you've seen it, let me know what you thought of it in the comments. Also, don't forget to like, share and subscribe. You can also follow me on Letterboxd for more of my views on films. Au revoir. Fisher Stevens is a pound shot Stanley Tucci. Rod Stewart turned down $1 million to appear at the opening ceremony. Wonder what Morgan Freeman got?